recording. So as we look at the TubeSpacer here, they have a model on the side here for us. You'll notice that, you know, we have the two views, which is really nice for us. And really, I don't know that it matters which one you pick, for instance, to be like where you start on the front plane, for instance, because they are pretty similar. Okay. But what I am going to do is I'll probably start on this one first, and I'm going to create the tube going in this direction. And then I'm going to switch directions. I'm going to look from the right side or create that right plane. And then I'm going to create the tube in this direction. And then we will create then the connection, you know, between the two. And I'll show you how we do that. All right. So, so let me, oh, and then I also want to let you know that if you finish, I know there are some students that are like, you know, I'm probably going to finish very soon. If you finish and you have everything in and you get it graded and everything looks fine, and let's say Thursday comes up and you have all that accomplished before that, you don't have to come, okay? Because there's no new information that's going to be given. I'm just going to continue working through these for anybody that wants to see tutorials and demonstrations, okay? So let's go over to Creo and look at how we're going to get this started. So I've got a fresh session of Creo. I want to make sure that I have my working directory set up, which I do. Okay. And then I already did my clearing in the background. So I'm going to start new here, and I'm going to start with TubeSpacer, and I'll call it 1. Okay. And I'm going to start by sketching on the front view, but I'm going to go in. I always say I'm going to go in under our extrude. So I'm going to define front, and I just have to move my people over to sketch here. All right. And now I am on my front plane and I can start sketching. I'm going to take the center of that bottom tube, the 1 1/4 diameter and the 2.5 inch diameter. I'm going to do that as my origin. So I'm going to take the external tube outside dimension. Now, again, you know, I'm not saying it's the best practice, but I always think of what is something that could potentially change in a design. And whenever I look at holes, I feel like I always want to have those as their own feature rather than, for instance, creating a donut here and then extruding the whole tube. It's probably a horse apiece, but if in the end I ever want to change that 1 1/4 inch diameter to something else, I don't have to try to figure out which extrude it was on. Okay, it's its own individual feature. So I tend to do, for instance, in the case of a tube, I'm going to do the OD as a solid, and then I'll go back in and I'll do the whole, possibly a little bit later. We'll kind of see. So, so that's here, and so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to simply. I should be all set because I'm located on my origin. I'm ready to do my extrude. Now I am going to do a symmetrical extrude here. And the reason I'm going to do a symmetrical extrude, let me go underneath here, is because when we look, you know, in this view, if I have the front plane going all the way through here, we're going to find a little bit later, it's going to kind of make sense to then do another symmetrical on this thickness of the connector, if you would. Okay. So I'm going to do a symmetrical, and the total thickness here for my extrude is 2 3/4. So I'm going to change my depth here to symmetrical rather than a blind. And then it's going to be 2.75 will be the width, and then it evenly distributes it on either side. Okay. And my front plane now is in the middle. Okay. My front plane is in the middle. All right. And I am going to hit okay. That looks good to me. Now I'm going to trying to think, which way should I do this? I'm going to put the hole in. I'm going to put the hole in. Now I am going to change the name of my extrude. So over in my design tree, I am going to change this to I don't know, you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it bottom underscore OD, means outside diameter of the tube. Okay. All right. So I'm going to call it that. That way extrude 1, extrude 2 isn't very descriptive. So now I'm going to put the hole through the center here. So I'm going to go back into my extrude. I'm going to click on. Now you could do the surface or the plane again, but I'm going to go on the surface because this is always going to be a through all or a through all the way or a reference to the back plane if you want to do it that way. I'm going to do another circle to be concentric. And this diameter is going to be 1.25, okay? And it should be fully defined. I'll check my features. Yep, I'm good to go. And then I can hit my okay. Now, in this case, it's always, as you know, for on the extrude, it's always going to want to add material, but we're going to switch the direction. We're going to remove material, and we want this to be through all, up to next, or to a reference. To a reference, you got to select the back plane if you want to do that. Oops. Edit definition. And so I'm gonna do a through all. Okay, that way, if that width changes, it'll always go through. You could also do up to reference if you wanted to, and then reference that back plane, because that'll also act exactly the same way. Okay, so I've got this in here. Now what I want to do, go back to my sketch, and I've got this, if you would, this tube in place. Now I'm going to draw the top view. I'm going to put this in place, but remember, this was my front view. So now that means that this is going to be my right side view. So I'm going to draw this top one on the right side plane. So I'm going to go back over. Okay. I'm going to do extrude, and I've got to define where I'm going to extrude. And this time I'm actually going to go on the right plane right here. Okay. This was the front plane that I did first, and I have to go perpendicular to that, the right plane. And then I'm going to hit sketch. Okay. I'm going to zoom out because, and I'm going to go shift middle mouse button to kind of pan this down, because now up here is where I'm going to draw my next tube. Okay. So I'm going to start with my circle, outside diameter, I don't know, here-ish. Okay. Let me shift and my outside diameter is going to be 2 inches. Okay. Now, again, I'm going to keep this as my OD of the top. So I'll go back and I'll rename the other one. And now here too, let's look at how we want this to go. So right now, this would all go on one side of that right plane. I want it to be evenly spaced on either side. So I'm going to change this to a symmetric. And that total distance is 3 inches. Okay, so it's kind of floating up there, but it's going to be evenly spaced on both sides. So I'm going to hit OK. Now I'm going to go back to my design tree, and I'm going to catch myself up on my rename. So this is going to be the bottom underscore ID, inside diameter. Okay. And then the last one that I did, I'm going to double click on that. It's going to be top underscore OD, outside diameter. Okay. And now I'm going to put the hole in the top one. So we're going to do another extrude, click on that surface. And now I'm going to do another circle, share the same center. Okay. And this is going to be a 1 inch diameter. Okay. Now is that on? It is. Okay. And I should be fully defined. I am, or ready to extrude. And I'm going to switch my direction, and I'm going to send this one as an all through all as well. Remove material. Looks like it's going through, and I'm good. Okay. Any questions so far? Okay. All right. Now let's go back and let's change the name of the top underscore ID. All right. Now I'm going to do a quick save on this just to say I don't want to redo anything I just did. So in case I lose something, I can always go back. All right. So let's look back and see now how we're going to connect these. So in this view right here, okay, we are going to, I mean, it can go in either, actually, no, it has to go in this direction. So we're going to connect down, and you'll notice that the connection points, if you would, are going to be tangent or at the quadrants of each one of these circles. Okay. So I am going to go back to Creo, And I am going to go on my right side view here. And I'm going to do an extrude. And it's going to be on that right plane right here. Okay. And what I'm going to do is I am going to create a rectangle. Okay. I'm going to create a rectangle. I think that's how. So I'm going to start at the quadrant up here, and I'm going to go down and across, and I want it to be on the other side and then straight down so that it's on the, I think it would be the top plane or at the origin there. Okay. So this is my rectangle. It's right in the middle. Okay. Right in the middle. Okay. And you're going to notice that there are no dimensions on here because what I did was I grabbed, if you would, features that were already there. So right now, my rectangle is the width of, I'll do my sketching plane. It's the width of that top tube, the outside diameter, and its length is going to go from my quadrant down to this plane right here. Okay. So you shouldn't have any dimensions right now because it's being driven by the geometry that's already there. Okay. So now we're going to hit OK and we're going to look, we're going to say, oh, okay, here it is. Now notice that it's starting on that plane. What I want it to do is I want it to go evenly in both directions. And I want it to be the width of the circle on the bottom, which that diameter is 2.5. So we want this to be 2.5 inches wide, but evenly spaced on either side of that plane. So we're going to change that depth to symmetric. Okay. And this to 2.5. There we go. Okay. So now we can see that it's connected. All right. I'm going to hit an OK. But you probably noticed there's something wrong there, Kelly. We don't want that rectangle to be in the top, right? Oh, I'm gonna rename my extrude. So let me double click on that. And I'm going to call this the connector. I don't know. That's what connector. Okay. So how can I remedy this? Any ideas? Like without creating another feature? How can I remedy this? Should I, or think about order? Should I have done this in a different order? Should I have any ideas about the order? If I would have done it in a different order, would that have changed anything here? Josh said he would have done the rectangle first, then the cylinders, and then the holes. That's an idea. So there is something we can do here on our design tree that can kind of make that a little easier. Rather than redoing the whole thing, I can actually reorder these items right here. Okay. So let's do that. Let's see. We're going to make the connector first. Okay. Let me push that up a little bit. And you're just going to hold it and then you're going to push it up. Now notice that it won't go any taller. Any ideas why it won't go any taller? Or any higher above? So it won't go above right now. It's only going to go this high. It won't go above my bottom or my top OD. How come? It is. Remember when I created that geometry, I created that rectangle. So it was on the quadrant at the top, the other quadrant, it was that width, and then it was the quadrants, if you would, or that plane in the bottom OD. So it needed that geometry. So it'll naturally not allow you to put it in a different order or not go in an order that's not going to allow it to generate itself. So it's kind of like, whoa, I can't do that. But let's see what happened here. Let's see what happened. Notice that up on top, I now have a through hole. Let's change it this way. Oh, look there. Now it's there. So do you see how it cleared it up? How did it clear it up? Tell me what happened here. So I added material in at first, right? And then I did my removing of my materials last. Okay. It's kind of like how we would probably build the part, right? Do you see that? We would probably, if you would, maybe cast that outside body as a solid. or close to a solid. And then we would drill the holes after the fact. Does that make sense? So sometimes when we're looking at how to create something, kind of imagine that manufacturing process, because a lot of times it goes right along with how we're going to create these things. We kind of we create kind of the box or the blob first, and then we refine it by maybe removing or refining it with different features like holes or cutouts and things like that. Okay. All right. So I think we're done. I think that's it. So if you run into this problem and you're like, oh, shoots, I should have done my holes after I put my rectangle in, or my connector in this case that we called it, then go ahead and just reorder over here. You don't have to redraw or restart over. Okay. So that's kind of fun to do. And then I also encourage you to, you know, play with changing the names of the different features that you're creating. It just gives it a little bit more description, so that if you want to go back and you want to change things, like if we would have just had extrude 1 through 4 or 1 through 5, well, now it's like, okay, which one is which when I look at it? Okay. So, so don't be afraid to work with that. Okay. Hold on. Sorry. Oh, no problem. You got stuck in the snow. Is there that much where you're at, William?
Yeah, there was an accident on Mayfair and Capitol, so they shut down the intersection for like 30 minutes. I was coming,
An accident at Mayfair
yeah,
and Capitol. Holy
I
cow.
was I was coming back from the gym and I left at like 4:20, like
Yeah.
4:25, and I
Yeah.
was like a 30-minute drive where it's like a 5-minute drive normally. So
Wow.
yeah,
Okay. Well, I'm glad you weren't in the accident, and it's totally,
yeah,
and I don't
yeah.
want, you know, I know I'm recording right now, so I apologize. So stop the recording. I'm really kind of done. Actually, I'll do that right now. But I don't want any